I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made In Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made In stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello again, and welcome back to the podcast that is known as United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com. I didn't write a fucking intro this week. Again.
Like 3 weeks in a row.
Oh, it's more than 3. We're on all those places, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever fine podcasts are found. I'm Mike Urevich. It's been a fucking week, 2, 3, I don't fucking know. Joel Codner's here. He's probably watched Batman about 5 more times, The Batman about 5 more times since the last episode, right, Joel?
Well, I am here, but unfortunately I have not viewed it any more times. I did enjoy a little deleted scene that came out today, but I'm still dying to see it again.
He did enjoy some time in Connecticut.
I did
recently, and looked beautiful. I'm glad that you got some time to have a break from it all.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Had a great time with the family out there and some old friends, and got a little bit of time in the snow, which was great. Really reinvigorating and refreshing. Spent a lot of time in nature. Just beautiful, beautiful place.
Awesome. Thanks, phone. Someone forgot to turn their phone on silent. Also with us, the other guy, the new guy. We still get to call him the new guy as long as he is the last one onto the show. Kevin Abbott's here.
As always, an honor and a privilege to be here, guys. And my favorite part of the show is when you introduce Joel first, and then you guys just kind of chat for a little while. I'm supposed to pretend, I guess, like I'm not here yet, because I haven't been introduced. I never really know how to navigate those waters, but it's my favorite part of the show. Because I'm listening to the show just like our listeners are, because I'm not even participating. It's great.
What I would recommend for you to be able to deal with that is go and listen to some episodes of our friends at Bitter Units shows, and notice how JT doesn't really say anything until about 30 minutes into the episode. Follow that as your frame of reference.
Are you suggesting that I should not speak on this show until about 30 minutes in?
Well, it's a fun little game to play called Is JT Actually on the Show or Not? And we can do that with Kevin, too. Is Kevin actually on the show?
No,
And then you say something witty, or you use your catchphrase that we haven't developed yet. How
I see what you're putting down here, Mike. I see what you're putting down. I understand what you're saying here. Say no more. I got it.
That'll
wink,
be your
nudge,
catchphrase.
nudge.
Say no more. There we go. You'll just pop in at about like 18 minutes in and go, say no more, and then the crowd, the studio audience will clap and be like, "Oh, he said the thing."
Mike, are you trying to tell me that you did not script this entire open? Because this seems like just well-honed, sharp comedy gold. I feel like we're off to a great start.
No, but, since I'm a brewer and I don't make a whole lot of money, I've been moonlighting as a writer for that new Big Bang Theory type of show for like network television, that one.
Well, the rating quality of this open definitely meets that standard.
That's all that I can hope for.
Yeah.
All right. So after that, I haven't been drinking much, honestly, before we record this, but let's see what everyone is drinking for this episode. I will start because I never start. I'm having one of our Copper Point lagers, along with an, as always, can of Liquid Death. I'm still waiting on my 12-pack of the berry flavored one from Amazon that has been 4 days past when it was supposed to be delivered. And I also have a nice little minor case rye whiskey aged in sherry casks that is becoming one of my favorite whiskeys, and at a really good price point. I think it's around $40, and it's a really nice bottle. Joel.
Well, I have some 2022 vintage ice water in my stupid ball aluminum cup that I bought at Publix and you can't see on camera because of my green screen bullshit again. And I also have my third hard Mountain Dew of the evening. Oh, this one is Baja Blast flavor. We got the alert from our friend Ed Roberts when they were available at Total Wine. I went and got some right away, and I was told they quickly ran out right after that. I guess they didn't last the weekend. My brother found another pack at like Wawa or some shit like that, so he brought one home, and I'm kind of addicted to these things. 5%, no sugar. It's basically glorified hard seltzer with food coloring, but I love it.
Our head brewer brought in the regular and the Baja Blast last week, and I got to be honest. I didn't drink much Baja Blast in my day when I was drinking soda because I don't even remember if it existed yet when I was still drinking soda regularly. So that one just didn't really taste great to me. But the original one, I was like, God damn, this tastes just like Mountain Dew and looks just like it too. So I was pretty impressed by it, and if I was still in my soda drinking days, I would probably get myself ripped off of a bunch of those.
Yeah, this definitely harkens back to my early drinking days in my early 20s. I'm pretty sure the first alcoholic drink I ever ordered at any sort of establishment was a fucking mudslide at a TGI Fridays in Coral Springs on my 21st birthday. So I was never much of an astute drinker before getting into beer. So I'm very much into the Smirnoff Ices and things of that nature. These I really like, and they're sugar-free, and I don't taste the alcohol, and they're just fucking enjoyable. I mean, I could leave beer behind forever and be totally content.
They do have the artificial sweeteners in them, so there is
no
that
sugar
in it to make it sweet. But this did bring up a question, but I don't want to take away Kevin's opportunity to say what he is drinking. So I'm going to come back to it in just a second. No, because
I'm not here. You guys just do your thing. It's fine.
Oh, well, Kevin's here. Kevin's here. Look at this. No, because it's actually something that I think that we should all chime in on. But Kevin, what are you drinking?
Well, I am not drinking any hard Mountain Dew. I actually never really enjoyed Mountain Dew, the non-alcoholic kind. So I have not partaken in that. But I am drinking something that would be very familiar to Joel, which is our Trip Sitter Barley Wine, our anniversary beer from Barrel of Monks that, depending on when you're listening to this, almost assuredly after our anniversary party, is out now. So go get it, unless it's sold out, which in that case, don't get it. But it is a English barley wine from us at Barrel of Monks. It's actually one of the few beers we've ever done without Belgian yeast. And I think it's a really, really tasty beer. Maybe a touch sweet for my taste, and I mean like a touch sweet. But it's an English barley wine, so it goes with the style. And then I also have some Templeton Rye that I'm sipping on as well. One of the things I want to make sure, and I like to always be the person that kind of exposes and shows how the sausage is made. On this podcast, every time Mike and I talk about what we're drinking, we always show it to the camera because we record this and we can see each other. This is not recorded visually in any way, and we almost always know what we're talking about, but for some reason we always show them like we're showing them to the people that are somehow watching this magically, and I just find that cute and very adorable.
It is, and we never see what Joel does it too, but we never see what he is drinking because his green screen always ruins it.
That's
now you were just gone.
Yeah, the technology is not totally there yet.
I also want to mention that the skull on the can of Trip Sitter is a complete homage to Liquid Death. We love them so much that I just had to put it on there.
That's a skull? Looks like an alien to me, but
it's green.
Yeah, the greens, not the grays. But all right, so before we get into the main topic, Joel brought up something that now I want to go around and get a round table answer on. Joel talked about the mudslide at TGI Fridays being like the first alcoholic drink you purchased.
Probably. I can't confirm it 100%, but I do remember being at a TGI Fridays on my 21st birthday with my best friend from high school and my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And I hated the taste of alcohol. I remember being a teenager trying Jack Daniels for the first time, thinking it was horrific. It still is. I hated that burn, that awful burn of alcohol. And the first beer I ever had was a can of Budweiser a friend and I found on the side of the road that I guess some bum left there and thought he would come back to later. But we took it and drank it, and it was terrible and, just piss hot. And yeah, so if I was going to have alcohol, it was always going to be something that didn't taste like alcohol. And now, of course, at this very moment, the entire fucking smoothie sour pastry stout revolution that I hate so much is making all the sense in the world to me.
Kevin, do you recall what the first alcoholic beverage that you legally purchased was?
Oh, legally? Oh, I was going a whole different place with that.
That's what I thought Joel was talking about, like the first one that he could legally obtain.
My best friend and I went to
I didn't know you when I was 21.
My other best friend from before. You weren't around, Mike. I promise. I wasn't cheating on you. My best friend Nick and I were back home in Michigan, where I'm from. We were gym freaks. We would work in restaurants, and we would go to the gym like every night afterwards. We worked like the same shifts. So my birthday fell, I think, on like a Friday or Saturday night. We got off work. We went to the gym, right? Worked out. And then before 2:00 in the morning, when I had turned 21 overnight, right as midnight hit, we went out to a bar and we both got Doers on the Rocks.
That's an interesting one.
We were going to do scotch on the rocks for whatever reason, and I had drank scotch and some whiskey beforehand, and we just thought it was a fitting and very adult drink for us to be drinking. It wasn't a, vodka cranberry or something, but yeah, it was a Dewar's on the Rocks, my first legally purchased drink. Before that, a lot of vodka orange juice, a lot of Captain and Coke, a lot of Boone's Farm. There's a lot of Boone's Farm, a lot of Snake Eyes, if you're familiar with that kind of flavored malt beverages. A lot of Old English 800 Ice.
Did you have St. Ides around where you were?
We had some St. Ides, yeah. But
St. Ides special brew.
Yeah.
Snake Eyes and Old English 800 Ice. That was my 16-year-old drink of choice.
St. Ides and what's Zima? Those were my underage days, there.
Do you guys remember your first underage illegal beverage?
Oh,
Stroh's.
That
Stroh's
wasn't
beer.
like being given like a sip from like, here you go, like from my folks or something. Like it was St. Ides.
Strawberry Cisco.
What's Cisco?
It's like malt liquor.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Shit you would find at some, shithole gas station. There was a place up Highway 441 in like the Delray Beach area. It was this hole-in-the-wall absolute shithole, like bar, pool hall, convenience store, and they always sold alcohol to teenagers. That's where everyone in high school got their booze. And
that was Lawrence Food Market in Boynton Beach.
Well, this isn't where I got the Strawberry Cisco, but I think it might have been sourced from there by someone else. But I remember being gifted this
locally
bottle.
sourced.
It's I don't know. It's not grain to glass. It's like chemical lab to glass. But it was gifted to me, and I remember keeping it in my like under my sock drawer, like hidden away so no one would find it. And then I came home from school one day, nobody's home. I'm like, all right, today's the day I'm going to try the alcohol. And I have the Strawberry Cisco with a ham sandwich with mayo. Because I'm thinking to myself,
pairing. Nice pairing, Joel.
Yeah, there you go. There
foreshadowing.
You go. I remember
plan this whole thing out.
Well, I thought, I have to have some food in my stomach so I don't get totally trashed. Because I'm like freaking out. I'm like the nerd, like if I were to try heroin, I would make sure I was swabbing my arm with alcohol. So
That's
I'm like, gotta have food in my stomach. I make the ham sandwich. I drink all the Cisco. It's completely disgusting, but I was fucking trashed. And I'm listening to Too Short.
Which album?
I'm not good with album names, but it's the one with I'm a Player.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that album.
Kevin, which album?
I don't know. I know more of the later stuff, Cocktails, Getting It. I don't know some of the early stuff.
I'll find out. But anyway, got totally sloshed on this shit and was literally bouncing from wall to wall as I walked down the hallway in this townhouse we used to live in because I was just that smashed. I'm just sort of bumping up against the walls like I'm a fucking pinball.
Guys, I think we could do a whole show on underage drinking stories, and no one is going to be interested but the three of us. But who the fuck cares? I've got some good ones, and I think it could be a fun deal. It could be a prequel, so to speak, about how we all got here.
Find it on our Patreon.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist.
How did we all get here? Well, let's tell you some stories of how we became this fucked up.
No, how did we get here? We have to tell stories about how our parents got fucked up, because that's how we got here.
Speak for yourself, Mike.
I honestly don't remember what was the first thing that I legally bought, because my 21st birthday was started in a bad way with a funeral, and then
Who did you kill?
No comment. I think the statute of limitations is still in place, but then
John F. Kennedy.
then it went to this sports bar that is now Duffy's in Boynton Beach, but it was something else before that. And like all of my friends were buying my drinks because they're like, oh, it's your 21st birthday, you shouldn't have to buy a drink. And then I was working at Perkins as a waiter at that time, and I went to my restaurant, and I think I bought an ice house when I was there because I'm fucking classy. So I think that is what I had as the first one that I actually purchased. I don't even remember what I drank prior to that. I do know that the night before I went to a concert, and the bouncer doorman gave me a 21 and up wristband because he's like, oh, it's your birthday tomorrow? Yeah, go ahead. And just put the wristband on me, and I had someone buy me a Bud Light, but I didn't buy it, so I don't really remember. I'm glad that you guys have way better recollection than I do.
I just made mine up.
You're
just
a good
kidding.
You should be working on this this Big Bang Theory show on network television that I moonlight on too. I'm gonna put in a good word for you.
I'd appreciate it. I could use a better gig.
Listen, I've seen The Big Bang Theory, and it has turned me on to creationism.
Yeah, because the dinosaurs were on the ark. That's what I understand. All right, so Kevin foreshadowed what the main topic of this episode was going to be, and no one remembers because fucking underage drinking. Am I right? Kevin wanted to talk about something that he really enjoys doing, and that is beer and food pairings. So, because this is kind of Kevin's forte, if you will, he just inhaled some beer. I'm going to let him take it from here.
The whole thing?
Whole thing.
Okay, you guys can just go ahead and...
30 minutes of last call about beer and food, and we can interrupt.
You guys just clock out. I got this from here. I think it's a really interesting thing. I mean, listen, the idea of beer and food pairings isn't new, right? We've been pairing beer and food for a long, long time, and they've been doing it all over the world for a long, long time. I come at the beer and food thing with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was in the wine world before I was in the beer world. I worked as a wine steward for 7 years at a pretty... It wasn't a really fancy restaurant, but at one point I had an incredible wine list. I mean, 700 bottles. I had $700 bottles of wine on that 700 bottle wine list, verticals of 7 to 8 years of some of the most prestigious wines in all of Italy. So that was at one point the job I thought I was going to have my whole life. And everybody knows that wine and food is this symbiotic nature to it, and it's so beautiful and magical, and the flavors that are unlocked are just out of this world when you pair the perfect wine in the perfect dish. And then I came over to the beer world and realized how well beers paired with food. And once again, not treading new ground. This is something that people have known for centuries, but being really pissed off that wine and food had this great following and understanding, and beer and food was nothing, right? Whenever I would do a thing with beer and food at a restaurant, they're like, oh, pizza and hot dogs. So that's what goes with beer, right? You go to a ball game, you drink a Budweiser, and you have a hot dog. And I was so kind of taken aback by that, and once again, kind of defensive of the nature of what we made, whether it was my early days at Funky Buddha or and now for years and years now at Barrel of Monks. So
what was that second one you said there?
Well, we can say that now, right? Because they're out of business. So anyway, I have had a chip on my shoulder about this, and I know that there's a lot of beer and food pairings going on, and we do a whole pairing dinner series that is a really, really cool concept that we came up with years ago called our Throwdown Dinners that we do every other month, and it gets great responses. We sell out the tickets and all that kind of stuff, but the culture of beer and food is still not anywhere near what wine and food is. And we also have the fact that in general, I feel like across the accounts that I'm working with, that beer dinners kind of had their day like 5 years ago, and they're just not as interesting because I don't think that there is a crowd of people that are appreciating beer in the same way that they're appreciating wine. So I just want to kind of throw that out to you guys, get your opinions on beer and food pairing, get your opinion on the culture and how it's kind of evolved in your perspective and in your unique situations.
Kevin's not good at this whole leading thing, so he's supposed to throw to someone.
I was waiting for one of you to step up, put your big boy pants on, and say some words. So I said to both of you, and both of you just kind of looked at each other on the screen saying, are you going to talk? Are you going to talk? Mike, why don't you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on food and beer and just the universe in general?
So, long time ago, there was a Big Bang. And the universe
really
just keeps on coming back to that, right?
You can't get off of this. Joel! You try.
Am I real? So I'm real? Okay, I'm really...
No, you told me I'm in control of this, so now this is happening. Joel.
Okay, I'll take the ball here. So I think, you hit on a great point, which is that wine is looked at as this elegant, kind of romanticized. It's not just a beverage; it's a whole event. It's not only costlier than beer in the sense that you have to buy a bottle. I mean, now wine comes in many formats. You have cans, mini bottles. There's all kinds of stuff, but it's generally known as like $7.50, and beer is kind of always known as the 12-ounce can or bottle, just in the general public sense. We've talked about this before, about how we often forget that people are still on the outside. Most people, they're not intimately involved with all of the ins and outs of beer and wine and all those things. It's just a kind of, in the same way that most people look at coffee as like fucking Maxwell House and Folgers. It's the same thing with wine or beer. They kind of think like red, white, champagne, rosé, and then there's like lagers or Guinness. And it seems like now at least maybe IPAs are kind of in the general consciousness. You see mentions of them on TV and movies, shit like that now. But, there is this whole romanticism to wine, and it's almost ceremonial. There's the presenting of the bottle, the opening of the bottle, the handing the customer the cork to smell, which always smells like fucking cork.
By the way, don't do that. If someone gives you a cork, just refuse it. It's classy.
They hand me the cork, I take a little bite out of it.
Dry. It's a good year.
But it seems like beer helped chip away at some of that over the past decade or so. As craft breweries grew and popped up all over the country, then they started doing beer dinners. And I remember in very early bottle shares and beer meetups and these little social things that I would go to when we had no breweries here, there was a huge emphasis on trying to educate people who were passionate about beer, in the sense that, there was someone around here who used to say, I don't remember the numbers, but they would say like how many potential flavor profiles wine had versus beer, when beer had like, I don't even know how many times more. And for me, like, I'm not a wine guy. I prefer like a very rich, thick, jammy fruity, dark red. And anything less than that is just kind of thin and watery to me. That's just me. I'm not a wine guy. My wife drinks all the wine in the house. But the times I do have wine, it's just kind of wine to me. I was originally going to get into wine before I got into beer, and then my wife got pregnant, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to drink 750s on my own. And then, of course, turns out all the good beers were in 750s at the time. But anyway, I feel like I'm all over the place here. But
well, let me jump in here, Joe. I know
Yeah.
you've got some thoughts on this, but I think something you said there is kind of really interesting, and I want to kind of hone in on it. So you mentioned that there's all these great different flavor profiles, and we get into it and we learn about this. Why hasn't beer, because it actually does have more flavor profiles and compare with a wider variety of food, why hasn't it taken over? Why did it see a peak with all these beer dinners? Why didn't it stick? Is it because we suck? Is it because the people presenting it aren't good? Is it because we're not giving enough different variety of different styles of beer with different foods? What is it to you?
I feel that, and I was kind of presenting this argument today, not about this particular topic, but related to something else, and the theme was the same, and that is that I feel like for how fast and big beer has grown, we still do an absolutely piss-poor job of educating consumers and even people in the industry and ourselves. And I feel like at this point, so much of it is just done for social media as opposed to having any positive or meaningful impact on the beer product itself. Wine has always had this romanticism, this, kind of higher tier, higher echelon thing to it. And it's looked at as, I'm going to have wine with a really nice dinner. And beer is looked at, like you said, like as the ball game thing, have it with a beer, have it with a hot dog or nachos or whatever. There's no romanticism to opening a can of beer and setting it on the counter. The fucking industry can't even agree on glassware. I feel like we're just so big and so oversaturated, and beer is one of those things where it's like everyone just do your own thing, and yeah, we have some rules, but you don't have to stick to the rules. You can put vanilla in an IPA, you can fucking make a sour brown ale. I mean, it seems like we just kind of throw whatever at the wall and see if it sticks, whereas wine has always seemed to have these very strict guidelines, and this I don't even know how to explain it, but it seems rather simple, right? Like, even grapes, like if you think of grapes, at one point in time, grapes were something that the average person couldn't get. It was one of those, I don't want to say delicacy, but like only rich people could get grapes at a certain time. So, to eat. So there's more to beer than just grapes, but it's still kind of looked at as like, barley, grain. Yeah, that's in fucking bread. It's beer just for is fuck. How do I explain this? For as complicated and as different and wide-ranging and flavorful as beer can be, it has just always had an uphill battle against wine.
It's not as fancy. It's not as prestigious. Right. And we've never gotten to that point. And Mike, I want you to weigh in on some of the things that Joel was saying. But one other thing I want you to address, and I think it's kind of interesting, and I have a question for you, is it because we are so scatterbrained and we have not allowed things to get classic? We haven't had hundreds of years of developing the IPA and the American palate. We've had like 5, and it seems to change every 5 years of what Americans actually like in an IPA, where Cabernets and stuff have developed over centuries. Mike, go ahead and jump in there.
I think that things have gotten a little off topic from the whole food pairing thing, but to answer your question, Yeah, I think that we are a little bit scatterbrained and that we're sometimes putting the cart in front of the horse in that like, because let's look at this industry like hype at this point in time. It is lots of fruit. It's lots of adjuncts, sweetness and stuff. And these things deviate from our traditional styles. And that type of stuff does not lend itself well to pairing with food because it is essentially food that you are drinking. And it becomes one dimensional or just overload of flavors that you're like, if you're trying to pair like one of these overly fruited sours or a super diabetic pastry stout with something, the food is probably lost within the context with that beer, because how do you find the nuance that either compares or contrasts with the food at that point in time? But to go back to, I feel like the ultimate, the start of this discussion, I think that some of that has made the beer and food pairing dinners kind of not so popular anymore. Is that like there is so much nuance in beer that people having to explain it in depth to the people there might make them be like, well, I'm not having as much fun if I have to be explained how this works with one another. But I see Kevin has a very strong opinion about that. But also, I am going to be one of those people who says it doesn't fucking matter to me. I very, very rarely at home think about what I'm going to drink that night with what I'm making. And very rarely am like, oh wow, this goes great. I will sometimes have a pale ale. I will have an IPA. I will have a Pilsner. I'll have our amber lager. I'll have a cider. I'll sometimes drink wine. I'm kind of like Joel with wine. I like those big jammy red wines a lot, but I also I like Sauvignon Blancs, especially like the very citrusy Sauvignon Blancs that remind me of sour beers a lot. But I'm still like a very novice wine drinker, and the only thing to me that wine ever really goes well with, and this is going to sound so fucking stereotypical, is pasta. Like I do like a really nice, rich red wine with like a Sunday gravy, or a really hearty pasta, like making a ragu or something like that. But other than that, I never really care. You give me something to have with whatever, and I'm gonna probably enjoy it. It's not going to hurt my eating experience, and it's not going to hurt my drinking experience. And maybe this is why I have personally never tried to take on Kevin in these throwdowns, because I don't think that I'm very good at beer and food pairing, because it doesn't matter much to me.
Well, so I think you touched on two things that are really interesting there. And I think your experience, Mike, is not unique. I don't think a lot of people are going down to their local grocery store and saying, oh, we're going to do pork tacos tonight. What beer, wine, or spirit is going to pair perfectly with this cuisine that I'm making? I think people mostly eat what they want to eat and they drink what they want to drink. And if they're terrible together, they take a sip of water in between. I think that's the norm. And I think that's where what you said a little bit earlier than that about how when you have to start explaining these pairings, that's where it might go off the rails. that's the exact place where it needs to be because it's an experience. It's not the norm. It's different from your normal everyday situation where you take a Sauvignon Blanc and pair it with something, where you take a Saison or a triple and you pair it with something, and you see how it's greater than the sum of its parts. So when people are actually open to it, they tend to be very receptive to these things and really, really engage with you if you have something to say. My worry is that in most beer portfolios, they can be kind of one note and monotone, and you don't have a wider range, even though beer and the big B, right, the greater aspect of craft beer can have all the different styles. Maybe they don't fit in every single person's portfolio, and maybe the people aren't really bringing a lot of different things to the table because they're bringing the beers to the beer dinner that already have the food in them, which is another great point that you made, Mike, is that we decided, oh no, we don't have to do beer and food pairings. We'll just put all the food in the beer. We'll do basil lime. We'll do chocolate hazelnut. We'll do all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it once again goes on to adjunct beers and why they suck. Joel, your turn.
Well, I'm sorry, Joel. I want to add one quick thing to what you said because of that and how it kind of throws off like why we did pairings to begin with. I think that what makes beer dinners sell now and work is having a gimmick or having a theme. And that's why I think that your throwdowns have been so successful is that they over the pandemic, like things have changed, but I always loved that you brought in a different chef. You brought in a different competing brewery. And like, that's something cool. That's something unique. That is not what we see all the time. Or when you have a theme built around it of like we did a beer dinner back in October with the Butcher and the Bar in Boynton Beach, and it was Oktoberfest theme. So it was all German food. So like, if you can come up with a theme around it, I feel like that can sell people on stuff a little better. Maybe gimmick wasn't the best word because I know in wrestling circles, gimmick is sometimes not always the best term to use, but like you guys found something there that you've now been running for 4 years, 5. How long have you been doing throwdowns?
Almost 7 years.
Oh, you've been doing those. Jesus. Oh yeah. Fuck. I'm still at previous brewery. But it like you guys have found something there that was unique at its time, is still unique now. You're selling those out still every month. And like, because people know that they're going to get something very different every single month. And I think that is where the beer dinner pairing stuff should be going, because just a traditional like, hey, we have this and there's a chocolate stout that goes with a ganache at the end. Like, fuck off. Like, I can fucking go to Publix and buy a ganache and go to Total Wine and buy a chocolate stout. Like, I like what you guys are doing over there, and I think that there needs to be more of that to have beer dinners be a successful thing.
Well, creativity is the key, and finding a hook for everything from the styles of beer we do to the events that we put on are very, very important. But at the end of the day, we really need the industry to support these ideas and make these beers more special. Joel, I threw it to you a little bit earlier on, and I didn't know you wanted to jump in with something, but
my bad.
Is there a way that we can make beer more special? Is there a way we can get into that pantheon of prestige that will make that bottle special as it pairs with that food?
No, I don't think so.
Cool.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Well, the way I see it, and I hate to be such a downer about this, but I think it just goes back to that thing about wine is wine and beer is beer. And it's very hard to educate the beer fan base, let alone an entire nation or world. and the beer industry is moving so fast and growing so quickly and is so widespread, and the styles are constantly changing and evolving, that it feels like there's no time to play catch up and settle things down and go, hey, like, this is what we're supposed to be doing, or this is how this is supposed to be. I mean, it's literally everyone just doing their own thing. And I imagine there's plenty of that in the wine world as well, but I don't see too many Merlots with Oreos. I don't see any sort of reliance on gimmicks. I mean, it seems like the furthest they go is have a real catchy label. Because you're at the store, you're looking at the shelves. I mean, I was shopping for wine for my wife tonight. I didn't know what the hell to get, so I just got 2 things we were familiar with. But I just feel like we're too far gone. And not to say that beer can't have its place as something prestigious. I just think it's more about the timing, the setting, the experience itself, and it's not always going to be the same every time. And there's just too many styles, too many variations, too many interpretations. We've really just gotten too big for our britches, I think. And that doesn't mean we can't have good pairings or good dinners. Like, I think, the Throwdown is a great example. I mean, we haven't really explained what that is on this episode yet, but just to quickly say it, it's a beer and food wine pairing with a guest brewery who comes to Barrel of Monks. Each brewery brings 4 beers. A chef prepares 4 dishes, and each brewery is surprised by each course. It's not like everybody knows what we're serving ahead of time, aside from the beer. So chef brings out a course, the competing breweries try it, then decide what beer they're going to pair with it, and then the audience is supposed to vote on which pairing they thought worked best. Kevin, you obviously know that as much as you have tried to communicate that, some people are still just going to vote for the beer they liked better. But I always enjoyed those Throwdowns. I thought they were a bit more upscale than the usual beer dinner. I have been to several beer dinners. I've been to Savor in D.C., which is like the ultimate beer and food pairing. And I got to be honest, by the end of it, I'm like, fuck these pairings. Like, just give me some of that cheesecake, give me some of that beer over there. Like, I don't care anymore. It just, overall, it just feels like beer is not going to be taken as seriously as wine. And I truly do not remember most of the official, like, beer dinner pairings that I've had. And that could be for a variety of reasons, because it was just half-assed and thrown together. And sometimes I'm turned off by these fucking dinners simply by the price. I'm like, $75. Like, I can go get fucking hibachi with my wife for $75. Some of these prices get up there, and it's like, well, I could go get fondue and have a nice little romantic evening. Why do I need to be in some fucking pizza joint? You know what I mean?
You see that melting pot? You make people fuck.
What?
You called fondue romantic.
That went in a weird spot. That went weird.
Listen, cooking your own food, in public is very erotic.
Very sensual, apparently. Now we know what triggers Joel. Everyone send Joel melting pot gift certificates for Christmas.
They're our new affiliate.
That will be a very, very important thing for him. I think that the consensus here is beer dinners suck. Beer will never be as prestigious as wine, and we should all stop trying. But I
didn't say that.
No, come on, Joel. I'm paraphrasing in a very quippy way.
I did, but I
didn't.
Appreciate. Yeah.
I think we should stop putting the food in the beer, and you started that shit.
It's okay, it's my fault. It's all my fucking fault. I'm sorry. God damn it. Oh, my fault. I want to know from you guys, and I'm going to go with Mike first. Is there a beer and food pairing that you actually like, that you've ever had that surprised you? Is there something that you've had and you went, oh, this is the reason why these people talk about this?
I I offhand, I think probably a pairing that I will usually be like, yes, this one I get it, this one I like, and can kind of put it together in my mind because, like I said before, most of this stuff doesn't make sense to me in what I am being told. This is why you should like these things. I just either like the beer or I like the food or I just like them both and just I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have these together. I always like saisons with mussels, like a white sauce mussels myself. I can't really explain why necessarily I do, but there's I think it was probably the first time that I really had very good mussels in Boston. I was drinking a saison probably at the time, and was like, oh fuck, these go great together, and but dude, like. I really can't think of a pairing that I could just throw out there. I mean, other than that,
you literally just did. So you've succeeded in your mission, Joel.
Thank you. Good night.
I have a few that I'm dearly fond of. The first one, and this was the first time that I realized it's not always about complementing flavors, but contrasting as well. I mean, this has got to be a decade ago now, but I very vividly recall having Dogfish Head Festina Pesh, which is like their peach Berliner Weiss, with stir fry. And on paper, I don't know, it doesn't make total sense. I don't make the fucking rules as far as beer pairings, but there was something about that savory, salty stir fry with this crisp, lightly fruity, refreshing beer that blew me away. And that's when I started looking for contrasting flavors that somehow mixed or melded kind of well as well. One of my all-time favorite pairings, probably my favorite pairing in the world, is Allagash White with a bowl of New England clam chowder in New England, like as the snow is coming down outside. It is just fucking incredible. And lastly, gotta, fulfill my sweet tooth. We used to have a little gastropub in a strip mall around here a few years ago called the Sybarite Pig. I would go there after night shifts at our first brewery. I'd work a bar shift and then I'd, get off and start heading home, and that place was on my way home. And I would stop in at like midnight or 1 a.m. And they had this kind of Mexican hot chocolate style brownie with caramel sauce. And I would get that with a can of Oscar Blues 1050 Imperial Stout. And that was just fucking perfect to me. Just all that chocolatey richness. It's still one of my all-time favorite things. So much so that when I would make brownies, I would substitute water. Like I would get rid of the water and use like 1050 or Brooklyn black chocolate stout or something like that in its place.
And those are great. Just on paper, those pairings you guys mentioned all sound perfect to me because they do add contrasting flavors and they wash the palate, they refresh the palate for the next bite. I'll throw out just two really quickly before we go into the next thing. One, Penang curry with a triple. Phenolic spicy triple with a spicy dish, brings the spices out of the food. And this Penang is like a rich, creamy kind of sauce, so you have a beer that has the body to match that. It's just incredible together. And one that's really wild, a chef at one point did like falafel balls with like a pesto sauce, not just a herby spicy pesto sauce, but with some actual heat to it. And we had a malty sour ale called Start that we did, and that sour ale with the pesto falafel spice, just for whatever reason, didn't make sense, didn't on the surface seem like it was going to work well together, but it just did, and I loved every second of it. And it's fun. I mean, listen, we can all be skeptical about these pairings and the place they hold in the beer community right now, but we do have things that we've tried that resonate for us, that we know work, or that we definitely want to share with people. I mean, Joel, when you're talking about this, you're talking with passion about these pairings you have with these food and beer, and you want to share with the world. Now, Mike, how much time do we have left in this show? I know you wanted me to run the whole thing, but I don't. That's not my part of my forte.
We're at 53 minutes.
Okay, so we got a little bit of time left for one more thing before last call.
Sure.
Okay, so now that I've said all that, Joel, why is it all bullshit? Why is food and beer bullshit? Why is food and wine bullshit? Why should we all just say, shut the fuck up, drink what you want, eat what you want? Because nothing really pairs. It's all subjective. It's all hearsay. It's all someone saying you taste something when you taste absolutely nothing.
Well, taste is subjective. And that's the kind of overarching rule for all of this, whether it's food, wine, beer, or those things combined. So, if you look at the 3 pairings I mentioned, there are some people who might find that absolutely hideous for whatever reason. Maybe they just don't like any of those elements, or I don't know. I wouldn't go so far as to say everything's bullshit, and believe me, that's the overall theme of my life. But I just feel like, and I'm probably repeating myself here, but I just feel like, metaphorically speaking, the table is kind of set. Like everyone just knows that wine is a little more prestigious than beer. And for as hard as beer tries, I feel like the lesser beer, the flawed beers, the really, I feel like there's more bad beer than good, unfortunately. And I feel like that drags down the good beer. It keeps it from that wine level prominence. Because I have always tried to tell people, like, I don't want the brewery down the street, our nearest competitors, to be shit. Because that's going to keep people who are used to fizzy yellow macro lager, that's going to keep them from trying our beer. If they go to a small brewery and they try something that is fucking horrible, and there's a good chance they do, they're going to go, I tried that craft beer thing and I wasn't a fan. I'm just going to stick with my Budweiser or whatever it is because it's consistent and I know where to get it and it's everywhere and it's cheap. I mean, I just kind of feel like that's the overall thing kind of hampering us at this point. And it's like the best and worst thing about beer is that anyone can do it. And all you need to get into the fucking business is a checkbook, as I've said before. So everyone kind of has the same cost of entry in a way. Like anyone can do it. And it's not the same with wine. Like you need land. You need good, fertile fucking land with good terroir to grow and harvest these amazing grapes that will translate to better wine. And with beer, it's like, I did it in my fucking garage. Now I'm going to open a 300-barrel brewery and, take over the world.
So Joel, you took this opportunity to say why the beer industry is bullshit, which I appreciate, which I really appreciate. Mike, you talked about how, beer in food and pairings are not your forte on a daily basis. But you also talked about how if you can, do it uniquely and specially. Yeah. Is this bullshit? Is this something that is just like, why are we trying to make this a thing?
No,
He asked me. My name's Mike.
Oh, good. Sorry.
He already did.
He got me talking about why things are bullshit, so now I can't shut up.
So, is it bullshit to me? Yes. Is it bullshit to everyone? Not necessarily. And I think that this, I'm going to run off of Joel's coattails a little bit here, because part of it has to be with the way that the industry is, and the loud, obnoxious people in the industry don't care about these things. Your hype boy breweries don't care about beer and food pairings. It is this weird dichotomy of like lowbrow bro culture mixed in with high-end pricing that makes it so weird, because they have like this price point of high-end like wine and really high-end beers of like well-made sours that are like aged in barrels over many years and blended or mixed culture stuff, like, but they aren't that. But then
They're not doing mixed cultures, by the way.
I know not all of them are. I'm just I'm saying that they are creating price points that are in line with those types of beers,
Gotcha.
but they are not. But they want to portray themselves as, yo, we're bros here, man. Yeah, come on, hang out. Yeah, let's do hangs with our bras and fucking shit like that. And they don't like these are the people who don't care about awards. They don't care about medals, and that's fine. That's fine. But it's saying no. They say no to awards. They say no to guilds. They say no to the Brewers Association. I say no to the Brewers Association, but like they're so anti the establishment of craft beer that they're like, we're doing our own thing, that I feel like they throw things for a loop, because it's like, we're high end, but we're not. We want to be bros. We're friends. We're homies. I fucking hate that term in this industry. But like, it's all about hanging out with our buddies, man. And brewing the beer that we normally brew, but also with them. Oh, they picked Nelson instead of fucking Galaxy. Bro. But those people are ruining that type of stuff and making it not as like, I feel like for others who want to portray high end and really be high end, like a brewery, like, to me, I think about the Referend in Pennsylvania, now formerly in New Jersey, who make everything spontaneous fermented beer, who are truly like high-end beer. And they look at people who are putting lactose into an IPA, vanilla into an IPA, and charging $20 a 4-pack for, and like, yo, what the fuck? Like, you're asking prices of a thing that it took us 3 years to make. And it's bullshit to me personally, but it's also bullshit from the way our industry has created whatever it thinks high end is.
So for you guys, it really does come back to the fact of high end and prestigious. Oh my God, I can't even speak anymore. Prestigious and specialty is the most important thing, and that's what ties into the food culture. And we have a hard time with that in beer for the myriad of reasons that you guys have kind of laid out. Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to food in beer before we go into last calls?
I did think of one other thing that I do really like. I just like a fucking good cheeseburger with a pale ale. Like, that's another really good pairing to me.
Cheers to that. Everyone should try that. Joel, do you have anything else before we go to last call?
I just want people to enjoy what they're having and not overthink it too much. You know, this will drive you guys nuts, but it does remind me of the Batman, where
wrap it up.
Jesus.
Okay.
I'm sitting in the theater just taking it all in with a big fucking smile on my face, enjoying the hell out of it, and having kind of shut down my brain and not overthinking it, not going, wow, they should have done this and they should have done that and all that. And I feel like that too can be applied to your beer, your food, your wine, and the pairing of all three, you know. So I don't think these things need to be overthought. I don't think that if you cook something, you should be like, oh, what's going to be the perfect beer to go with this? I mean, if you find it, great. But you might not always have the right beer on hand. You might not always have the right food on hand to go with that beer. So, and you might surprise yourself. Take chances. I mean, like I said, I also am very fascinated by contrasting flavors that don't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. And that's how I kind of approached some of the pairing. Huh?
Life?
I mean, I don't know what I'm doing in that regard, but, like when I was doing the throwdowns, when I wasn't at Barrel of Monks, but I was the competing visiting brewery, sometimes I like to take chances and just kind of throw people for a loop and go, hey, I know we're supposed to kind of work light to dark, sweet to bitter, but I'm going to start you off with a fucking brown ale first course. How you like that? So I just think, take it easy. Don't overthink and take some chances. You might be surprised.
I think that's a good note to end on for that. Mike, do you want me to run last call?
Sure.
Okay. Joel just had an extended piece. So, Mike, what's your last call?
So I'm going to piggyback on a little bit of what we were talking about here with food. I don't know about my co-hosts or any of you guys, but my wife and I have an extensive collection of cookbooks in our house, many of which we have barely looked at, let alone tried to cook anything out of. A couple months ago, we decided to really try to make a dent in some of our cookbooks by creating a little game between ourselves in which on whenever weekends that we had stuff not going on, we would alternate with one person picking a cookbook and the other person has to pick a recipe out of that cookbook that we then make for dinner for ourselves. And this allows us to get through some of these books that we have been neglecting for way too long. And thus far, it has been a whole lot of fun to do. Probably of the more than handful of books that we've done thus far, only one has turned into a complete disaster. And I'm not going to put whose cookbook that was on blast because I don't even remember who it was. But this has been a really fun thing to do for cooking, for just hanging out with ourselves and the time that we get to have after we put the boys down to sleep. And if you are a person like me who has a lot of cookbooks and just have never been able to really make a dent in them and do something, I think go for it. Take this from me and do it and have some fun with your partner or friends, like even too. Like, who says that it has to be a significant other? Like, do this as a way of getting some friends together and cooking and enjoying food with one another. I don't remember a single fucking thing that I drank with any one of these items, but I do love cooking, and I know that these guys can attest to that. But this has been one of the most fun things that I've done over the last few months, and so if you have a bunch of cookbooks, find that little game, take that game, and make some stuff out of them.
Very cool, Mike. Thank you for tying that in with the food aspect, even though you doubled down on the fact that fuck the pairings. I will go next, and I will let Joel close it out with something about the Batman. What I want to tell anyone who is listening to my voice is that you don't necessarily have to buy a house. It's really expensive, and there's a lot of expenses that you're not going to anticipate. My wife and I bought a home about 3 years ago, and we ended up spending, and I've calculated this, I've calculated every dollar I've spent on permanent improvements to the house. And I'm not talking about like buying a hedge trimmer or something that I can take with me. These are permanent improvements to the house. And I've spent about 20%, we have spent about 20% of the entire house's value in addition to buying the house. And this is down payment and all this other kind of stuff. It's a lot of freaking money. We just had to replace all the AC ducts for an exorbitant amount of money. It was over 5 figures to have that happen because we had water dripping all over our ceiling, because the AC unit is up in the attic. And, you know, I always thought, like, to be an adult, you have to own a house. You've got to buy this. Renting, it sounds like a really, really good idea at this point. And everyone says, oh, you make all this money. Yeah, but you spend $50,000 to $100,000 in freaking improvements over the X amount of time, and then you sell it for $100,000 more than you bought it, and you basically broke even, and with all the extra hassle and all the extra problems. So it works for some. If you want to have your own place, go out and do that. That's great. I wouldn't take it back. I love my home. But for anyone who thinks like you have to do this, there's other ways. Let me just put it that way. There's other ways to do it. Joel, why don't you go ahead and close us out?
So I will keep it somewhat food related while still anchored in the cinematic universe, though this is not Batman or MCU related. I saw a fucking incredible movie on the flight back from Connecticut, which I would like to recommend. It is called Boiling Point, starring Stephen Graham. You might know him from Boardwalk Empire. He played Al Capone. He played Tony Pro in The Irishman, if you were able to stay awake through that. He's in the only 2 good scenes in the entire movie. Great actor. When I heard he was doing this, I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta see this, and then I totally forgot all about it. If you are in the service industry or have worked in the service industry, especially restaurants, I don't know if you will enjoy this movie or be so triggered that you jump out of a fucking window, but it has got to be the most accurate movie I have ever seen about what takes place behind the scenes in a restaurant and in the front, basically. And the brilliant thing about this movie is that it is done in one take. This entire fucking movie is 90 minutes of one continuous shot. And this isn't like the World War I movie, 1917, where there's a little bit of trickery. You know, maybe they go through a dark tunnel and that's where they cut. This is legit one fucking shot. And so in the beginning, I'm just riddled with anxiety. Like, holy shit, like what if somebody flubbed their lines? What if somebody laughed or tripped? I mean, I can't film Kevin for a minute in a Barrel of Monks video without laughing my ass off.
That's true.
This is an entire fucking team of actors and extras and everyone continuing this 90-minute fucking movie, and it's awesome. 30 minutes in, I was ready to cry. 45 minutes in, I was ready to have a panic attack. It has every possible thing you could experience in a restaurant setting. I mean, you've got the employee who shows up late and fucks off, but everybody likes them, so they get a pass, and the customer with the nut allergy, and you're like, holy shit, are they going to kill this person? Fucking customers who are like Instagram influencers and think they should get special treatment because they have 30,000 followers and can make or break the restaurant. Just, it is so quick and stressful and tense and all over the place, and I was just blown away by it. I'm such a huge Stephen Graham fan, but this movie was really, really good.
Boiling Point, right? I know.
Boiling Point, yes.
Okay.
I'm
just
sometimes the
making a
fucking
note to
movies on
myself.
planes like don't coincide with the releases of movies on digital home video or whatever, so I don't even know if it's out on streaming yet, but I just remember hearing about it and knowing it was like going to be Stephen Graham in this stressful, high tension fucking movie about working in a restaurant, and I was like, fuck, I got to see that. And then I forgot all about it, and then it was on the plane, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to spend the next 90 minutes watching this, and it's so good.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I love him. Fucking Tommy from Snatch. All right. So I think this was a good episode. Kevin got to run a good bit of it. Kevin got to talk about things that he really enjoys in the beer world. Let us know what you thought. Thanks, Joel. All of the fuzziness that comes through on the episode is Kevin. Beating like weird, just random sounds are usually Joel, and I'm perfect.
Mike, you're the best. Has anyone told you you're the best recently, Mike?
Nah,
You're
but
the
I
best,
appreciate it.
You're the
It
best.
makes me feel good inside and out. You guys want to plug anything? I know that your anniversary party is after this, but anything?
Hey, anyone who's listening to this in the past, before we actually put this out, come on down to the anniversary party and get yourself some Barrel of Monks anniversary beer.
Or come to our barbecue bash at Copper Point, which is the same exact day.
No, don't do that. Don't do that at all in the past or any time.
No, you should, because we announced our thing further than 8 days out from when it was happening.
Oh, are you trying to say that our social media is somehow sufficient, Mike?
I heard
now.
things.
Come now, Mike. Now, you know what? We're going to have issues here. We're going to have serious issues.
Second episode, starting now.
Mike did say he really loves the poster advertising it, though.
I don't know where that's going.
What's
was that
AYCD?
Sarcasm? I don't know who you are. Where are we going with this?
What's AYCD?
All you can drink.
Okay, you should probably put that into some of the stuff that's going out there.
Duly noted.
Anything that you want to plug that is in the future or present?
You guys just gave me like tons of work to do tonight, so I have to get off this call and go make some calls of my own and change things up, and it's just not even fair. This is why I don't like talking to people in my industry or people. I'm sorry, that was Joel's line.
That is exactly how I feel about a lot of things too. Joel, do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, the Batman starring Robert Pattinson in theaters now.
This is either the best outro to this podcast we've ever done or the worst. We're gonna figure it out.
So Joel works for DC now.
Warner Brothers.
The same company. But, right?
Well, no. I mean,
Maybe.
one's a studio and one's... Go ahead.
Uh,
Are we on other platforms that you can like find our podcast on, Mike? Is that your next thing?
Yeah, all the ones that Joel makes fun of a couple episodes ago, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, all of those. You can find us at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. Support stuff that we like. Go to our website at unitedwedrink.com/sponsors, Made In, Liquid Death, all of that stuff. You can buy shirts, buttons, stickers from us at unitedwedrink.com/store. And other than that, we might be back in a couple weeks to talk about other stuff, or Kevin has just quit and disowned us as friends. We'll see. Who knows? No big whoop. Talk
Not
amongst
possible.
yourselves.
I love you guys.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of winter or the beginning of spring or the beginning of summer, like it is kind of here. We'll see you next time. Cheers. Oh, no one else is going to say cheers? I'll go fuck myself.